Welcome to the Path to Mindset Mastery podcast. I'm so excited you're here, and I have a question for you. Have you ever labeled yourself as a procrastinator? Like someone who struggles with procrastination in some way, shape, or form. Today, I'm going to give you a 5-step process to end procrastination forever. It will serve you so much in all your business, your personal life, all of it. So my name is Brad Bizjack. I'm a mindset coach and inspirational speaker. And for the last 3 years, I've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs and home-based business owners and help people just like you shatter limiting beliefs and overcome self-doubt and build the confidence that you need to create the life that you truly deserve. This is the Path to Mindset Mastery podcast. Before we dive in, one of the offers that I have for you today, which is totally free, I encourage you to click the link below and download the Mindset First Aid Kit. It's a PDF go-to guide when you're in the dark times of trying to build your business and your life and you get overwhelmed with anxiety or frustration or blame or guilt or inadequacy. And what you can do in that first aid kit is plug your limiting emotion into the PDF, and it will tell you exactly what it means, exactly what to do about it, so that limiting emotion goes away in seconds and you can go back to creating that life that you want and being consistent like that. It is incredible. So make sure you download that free PDF. It's linked up right below this. And of course, if you're finding value in this, give us a rating and review. I absolutely love seeing your feedback on this stuff, seeing how much it served you and helped you in your life. And I'd love for you to do that. And also share it, screenshot it, put it on your Instagram stories, get it out to the world. This can serve your team, your family, all of it. So when I was in college, my friends and I were in a fraternity, and as you can imagine, in a fraternity, we used to party quite a bit. I remember it was like, so we thought we were so cool because our buddies worked at bars and they can get us in underage and all this stuff, and it was all this stuff that I probably shouldn't have been doing back when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. And I remember my buddy Jim and I had a calculus test coming up, a calculus 2 test. And if you're anything like me, Calc 2 is just like, I can speak, but I can't do freaking calculus, right? I wanted to do really well in the test. I wanted to get good grades and graduate and all these things. But the prospect of going out and, talking to girls or drinking at a bar or whatever it was so much more exciting than studying for a calculus test. And so we put it off. We put off studying for a calc test, and we went out that night. And we're like, hey, the next morning, we're hungover, and we're like, hey, do you want to go study at Granger, the library at the University of Illinois? Do you want to go study at Granger and get this done? We're like, no, you know what? Let's go get Jimmy John's. So we go get Jimmy John's, and that night we're like, okay, tonight we're gonna go to the library and we're gonna study. And it comes to nighttime, and I'm talking to Jim and I'm like, hey, are we going to go study for this test? And we're like, this guy's working at this bar tonight. We could probably get in and skip the line. All right, let's do that, right? And so we go and do that. And we end up doing this like consistently, and this calc test is coming up in a couple weeks, and we kept doing it over and over and over again. And then it got to be, the calc test is on Thursday, it got to be Wednesday. And we hadn't studied one bit for this calc test. And it was like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like 20% of our grade or something like that. And Jim and I look at each other and we're like, dude, we haven't studied for this test at all. And we went to the library, studied for that exam from, whatever it was, like 3 p.m. all the way until the wee hours of the morning at like 4 or 5 a.m. Go home, get 2 hours of sleep, go to the 8 a.m. exam, and we both end up passing the exam. It's kind of like if you guys have ever seen New Girl, and Winston in New Girl is studying for the police academy, and he puts it off and puts it off and puts it off until one moment where he realizes something. And that is the point of this podcast episode. When Winston realized, if you haven't seen the podcast episode, you can ask when Jim and I realized it was time to study for the calc test. It was when one thing happened. It was when we hit what's called a pain threshold. A pain threshold. It's where the pain of not taking action became greater than the pain of taking action. And it kind of just made sense to me in that moment that, oh my gosh, procrastination can be avoided if I start to see this ahead of time. I learned throughout my personal development journey that all human beings do everything you do is driven by your need to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. Everything you do, what you wear, how you act with your spouse, if you study for an exam, if you do an invite to your business, all of it is driven by your need to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. Every single bit of it. The challenge that most people face is that they unconsciously choose short-term pleasure. And what happens when you consistently choose short-term pleasure? You get long-term pain, don't you? You get long-term pain. You feel this feeling of guilt bubble up inside of you, and you end up not having the results you want in life. I have people in my family that, let's talk about the idea of money. What would someone that has an abundance mindset, someone that is planning for their future, do with a good portion of their disposable income? They would invest it for the future, right? They'd invest it for the future. But what most people do, at least the people that that I talk to about this that are close to me in some way, shape, or form in my family, what most people do is they use that disposable income to buy things. Like just little trinkets or little experiences or whatever it is. They buy things with it. And so they're choosing short-term pleasure in that moment, and that's okay. There's no judgment for that. But what will it lead to in 30 years? Long-term pain. Long-term pain, not being able to do the things that you truly want to do when you retire. But when you have awareness into this, you can switch it and you can choose short-term pain, or I should say not even pain, just being uncomfortable, for long-term pleasure. Because if you were to invest, let's use the example of money, if you were to invest a good portion of your disposable income now and consistently do that with the power of compounding over the course of time, what happens when you get to 50, 60 years old? You can do whatever the hell you want. And it's incredible, and it's such a freeing place to live. You're choosing short-term uncomfortability for long-term pleasure. And so human beings do this unconsciously. What I'm trying to do with you is bring conscious awareness to this so you can see in areas of your life when you're procrastinating in some way, shape, or form, how to switch it. And this, I'm going to take you through a 5-step process that I personally use whenever I find myself procrastinating. Because while I am teaching this, I still find myself procrastinating in some things. Like doing this podcast episode, right? That's an example. My wife is at home. I want to go watch Friends with her today. And I was procrastinating on this for a little bit, but I chose to use this exercise to get myself to do this. And you can use this in your life in any way, shape, or form whenever you're procrastinating. So what are the 5 steps? Really simple. Step number 1. I want you to write this at the top of your page. Step number 1 across the top. What is the action step I'm procrastinating on? What's the action step I'm procrastinating on? Write that across the top. And then I want you to imagine there's little quadrants on your sheet, okay? I want you to write, so in the top left, you're writing 2. In the bottom left, you're writing 3. In the top right, you're writing 4. And in the bottom right, you're writing 5, okay? So 1 is across the top. What's the action step that I'm procrastinating on right now? And then we have top left 2, bottom left 3, top right 4, bottom right 5. Let's go to number 2. Number 2, in that quadrant, after you've identified what your action step is, what I want you to do is ask yourself, what pain do I associate with taking action right now? What pain am I associating with taking action? So let's use the example of studying for a test. I'm gonna have to learn something that I don't wanna learn right now. I'm not gonna use calculus in my career. Why do I even care about this, right? Like different things like that. It's time away from my friends. I'm not able to go and meet these people at these bars, right? So with your situation, whether it's inviting for your business or whatever it is, ask yourself, what's the pain I'm associating with taking action? Because there's something painful about it, otherwise you'd do it. So what's the perceived pain that comes with not taking action? Then you're gonna go down to the next quadrant, quadrant 3 in the bottom left. And you're gonna ask yourself, okay, what pleasure am I getting from not taking action? Because if you're not taking action, you're getting something out of it too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. What are you getting out of it? What's the pleasure that's derived from not taking action? Maybe it's more time with your spouse in your situation. Maybe it's, let's use the example of Cal 2. Maybe it is time with my friends at a bar. Maybe it's meeting someone at a bar. Maybe it's hanging out with my buddies, whatever it is. But you're getting something from not taking action. In your situation, what is that thing? What is that thing that you're procrastinating on, and what is it giving you? What's the pleasure you associate with it? What's the pleasure you associate with it? Write those answers down. Then we go to number 4. Number 4, in the top right. And this is where things start to actually change for you. When you use this, the game will change forever. Top right, number 4, you're going to ask yourself, what's the deep emotional pain that I'll experience 6 months from now if I don't take action every day starting right now? What's the deep emotional pain that I'm going to experience 6 months from now if I don't take action starting right now? In the example of the calc test, I'll fail my final exam. I won't pass college, right? I won't graduate. I won't get a job. And I'll feel like a failure. And I'll feel less than. I'll feel like I could have done something. I'll feel guilt and worthlessness. What about you? In the thing that you're procrastinating on right now, what's the deep emotional pain that you're going to experience in 6 months from now if you don't take action right now? What are you going to experience? Not just the surface level things, but when you don't achieve those surface level things, then what do you feel? And I want you to write down what you're going to feel 6 months from now if you don't take action starting right now. And you'll be blown away by what you write. So write that down, then we get to number 5. Number 5 is in the bottom right. What's the deep emotional pleasure, the long-term emotional benefit that I'll gain in 6 months when I decide to start taking action right now? What am I going to get out of this emotionally, deeply, when I start taking action right now? And if you give the example of the calc test, I'll pass college, I'll graduate, I'll get good grades in this, I'll feel proud of myself, I'll feel worthy, I'll feel like I did the hard thing, I took the road less traveled, and I didn't settle for the easy way out. I'd feel proud of myself. In your situation, have you ever noticed that when you take action when you don't want to, you feel proud of yourself and it leads you to taking more action? Right? So when you just start with doing one invite that day, you feel proud of yourself and you do it again. So I want you to ask yourself, what's the deep emotional pleasure, the long-term benefit you're going to get in 6 months from now when you take action starting right now? And I want you to write these out. What's so important with this exercise is that you write it. You do not think it, because when you think it, it's not going to do anything for it. There's a reason I'm asking you to write it. Because what happens when you see the short-term pain or what the pain you associate with taking action next to the long-term deep emotional pain that you'll experience if you keep this up? You're going to realize that the pain you associate with taking action, it's kind of trivial, it's not very important to you, it's just, oh, I don't really want to do this, right? It's just kind of things that don't actually matter. And then you look at the long-term pain and it's actually things that would be so much more painful, and you realize, oh my gosh, is it more painful to take action on a dream or to settle for mediocrity? Right? And you start to see that and you're like, wow, I better start taking action right now. And then you take it a step further, since we're motivated by pain and pleasure, take it a step further and you look at 3 and 5 right next to each other. And you see the little benefits that you gain from missing out on taking action, like I get more time watching Netflix. But then you look at the long-term emotional pleasure, the long-term benefit, and you're like, I get total financial freedom. What's more important to you, friends on Netflix or long-term financial freedom? Right? And you'll start to see, oh my gosh, taking action right now is so much more important than not taking action, but this only works when you write it. This exercise has allowed me to not procrastinate in things that would be so easy to procrastinate in. And so I challenge you to use this in your life. And when you do, you're going to feel so uplifted and you'll gain momentum so procrastination doesn't become part of your identity. And that's the next problem that I want to bring up that people face. When I ask people, how many of you deal with procrastination on a regular basis? What I get a lot is people saying that I am a procrastinator. They say, I am a procrastinator. I want you to ask yourself, have you ever said, I am a procrastinator? And no judgment if that's you, but what happens when you label it as that? When you are a procrastinator, what happens? You fight to protect that identity. And the reason for that is because this is a Tony Robbins quote, there is no stronger force in the human personality than staying consistent with who we already think we are. There is no stronger force in the human personality than staying consistent with who we already think we are. Tony Robbins said that. And what we face in that situation is when we say that we are a procrastinator, we find ways to prove it true. But when we say instead, I have a habit of procrastinating, or I've had a habit of procrastinating, then we can do something about it. We can change it. And everything changes go forward when it's no longer part of your identity. And that's something you need to condition in. So with this podcast episode, if you use these steps, you can start to take action on the things that actually matter to you so much faster. And when you take action so much faster, you're going to be proud of yourself, and that self-confidence is going to build, so you're going to procrastinate less often. And all of a sudden, you're going to find yourself a month down the road, you're going to be waking up at 5 in the morning just wanting to take action, so freaking excited about your dreams, it's not even funny. This is how to end procrastination forever. It is so simple, but I'm telling you, this works. So try it today. My homework for you is to try it on just something right now that you're procrastinating on. Maybe it's sending your invites today. Maybe it's getting started in your business today. Maybe it's that you're sitting on your computer watching Netflix or whatever it is and you need to work out. Whatever it is, do this exercise and watch it change. Just the act of putting the pen in motion is changing your energetic state, your emotional state. And when you change your state, you're more likely to take action in a positive way. So I hope you found value in this. Don't forget to download the Mindset First Aid Kit below this. This is your go-to guide when you're in those dark times. When you're procrastinating, you feel overwhelmed or anxious or whatever it is, it's so easy to let that control you. This teaches you how to let those limiting emotions go away in seconds. You'll be able to break through it in an instant and get back to building your legacy. Imagine no longer needing a week to get back on track, but instead you did it in seconds. What would that be like for you? That's what the Mindset First Aid Kit is for. It is all linked up below this. And as always, if you find value in this podcast, make sure you give us a rating and review on whatever platform you're listening on. I love seeing your feedback. I love seeing how this has benefited your life. And if you feel compelled to, would love if you shared this. Would love if you share this in your stories, on your social media, screenshot it, put it in your Insta stories. People need to hear this stuff. This is the stuff that they don't teach you. Most people teach you a strategy, and strategies are important. But if you don't have the mindset behind the strategy, is the strategy actually going to work? People need this stuff. So let's get in front of them, share it with more people. I hope you found value today. My name is Brad Bizjack. Go out there today and every day and live your life with a genuine smile on your face. You're only one mindset shift away from making that happen. I'll see you next week.